Hello all and welcome back to another video on Doctor Who. This is going to be part 2 of my season 14 review containing episode 3, 4 and 5. So obviously we will kick off with episode 3, Boom. And this episode I really liked. It felt like Doctor Who was back, the same sort of subtle messaging, but messaging exploration side of things that Russell T Davies would usually write. So there we go, I liked an episode of the new season. I'm not just totally trashing it, and I am trying to be analytical in what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, and explain my reasons why, and it's not because of wokeness, whatever the hell wokeness is, but let's get into how I enjoyed Boom. Well, I felt that the whole thing of they're fighting a war against themselves was really interesting. The commentary on war profiteering and waving that into a villain of the week. The exploration of the Doctor being like, oh my god, how am I going to get out of this? And because of the nature of what I am, an explosion will kill this planet. Which again brings me on to theories that I will eventually get around to publishing, hopefully before the season is over, about how I think that this series is really going to aim to recontextualise and question what we think we know about the Doctor's origins, because if you've got people like the Giggle, the Maestro, the Trickster, the Doctor, are they all higher concepts, higher beams? Anyway, I will get to that in a proper theory video, and probably be proven completely and totally wrong by the end of the season and the expectations I now have for it. But it's interesting. Yeah, I really liked the tension of this episode, but the Doctor trying to keep cool for Ruby's sake. Monday, Sunday, you should marry Ruby. Just that was nice. And apparently, she's coming back as a possible permanent companion, replacing Millie Gibson, possible co-companion. I'm hearing co-companion, and I hope so, because the Monday, Sunday thing would actually be kind of a cute romance. Maybe you wouldn't get a romance, but I think those two as a pair of friends would get along well as well, to be fair. But anyway, yeah, I really liked Boom's suspenseful nature. They really talk about the Doctor being a dad, trying to keep the dad AI, the horrors of war that you see. Every element of this was just really well paced, really well written. The ending seemed a bit sudden, but it wasn't a bad ending, so you can write endings when you try, although I think it needed about a couple more minutes. But I liked this episode. I would really rewatch it, and old Doctor Who messaging, pacing, and general flow seems to be back. To a lot of people, the child actor was apparently really irritating. Like my friend, bless him, was just like, I cannot watch this episode. The child actor is so bad, and in the modern day, child actors aren't that bad. Personally, which is why I'm not naming my friend, because I'm not having you come after them. But personally, I feel that the child actors did a decent job. They were just given really bad lines of dialogue to consistently say and consistently look way over confused, because they understood that their dad was no longer with us, but they then didn't understand it, and then they did, and they didn't, and they did, and they didn't. So yeah, the dialogue the kid was given was not great, I will admit that. But this episode is something I highly rewatch, and I really did enjoy for the reasons I've already discussed. So I won't bore you with going long-winded on this one, because I've already got 2 more episodes to do, and I think I go more long-winded in the episodes I didn't like, just so I can explain my reasoning and go on a bit of an old man rant, and I love an old man rant, mate, just like I love an old man pub. But anyway, that's enough of that. I really liked this episode, would happily watch it again. And yeah, there you go, I liked an episode of the new season. Boom was suspenseful, masterful, well-paced. I loved it. But anyway, now we've covered Boom, let's move on to episode 4, 73 Yards. And oh boy, have I got some stuff to say. And it seems that the general discussion and discourse online is that this episode is extremely very good, and I would somewhat agree with that, but I do have some omissions, and upon rewatch, I feel like this episode is a really good first watch, really suspenseful, keeps you engaged throughout, gives you centre of focus on Ruby, and gives you a really good companion-based episode, keeps you focused throughout, and has an enjoyable, gripping plot right from the start. However, again, the ending screws it over. So upon rewatch, I feel a lot about this episode. There are very good elements in it, and the political allegory feels natural and not too over the top and naturally woven in the villain of Roger App Williams, or whatever the heck his name was at this point. The whole magic thing is because of everything that happened in Wild Blue Yonder, so I don't object to the concept of magic systems interfering with Doctor Who at this point, similar to how Aliens would have, and it seemed to work really well throughout the episode. The Welsh bar taking the piss, the mysterious build-up, the suspensefulness, everything to do with the woman at 73 yards and making people scared enough to run away and abandon Ruby is really good, really interesting concept throughout. And they try and make it a closed temporal loop mechanic in time travel terms, making the woman Ruby. Could have been really good, but the ending being so unexplained and the amount of unanswered questions being seemingly intentional. But that was until, Russell T Davies came out and said, I'm not going to explain how Ruby was making people that scared to abandon her. I'm not going to explain how the old woman that was Ruby made the Doctor go away. And I'm not going to explain how the loop ends with Ruby looking different than the old woman that was 73 yards away from Ruby in the first place. Because if it was a closed loop, it should have been that woman. Or if it was a closed loop, the loop should have just continued infinitum and been unbreakable. Again, paradoxes could cross over and time travel mechanics could not be quite so simple. Because loops obviously have to break for things to continue. But again, it just lacked that Doctor explanation and the fact that Russell has basically gone, I'm never going to explain it. I think it's better if it's a mystery. No, Russell, that's just poor writing on your part. You couldn't even be asked to have the Doctor see the woman, see that it's Ruby or another variant of Ruby, and explain what that means for the mechanics of the show, explain what that means for the mystery of who Ruby is with the whole adoption thing around her, explain any of it. You don't explain how Ruby can time travel. Again, that plays into the mystery of who she is, but if Russell's just too lazy to explain shit, then this singular temporal loop adventure falls on its arse upon rewatch and has no meaning and actually really, really frustrates me as a fan. I don't know about anyone else. It has no rewatch because the suspenseful mystery and the build-up is what really, really makes this episode great. The ending fucks it, and if Russell's too lazy to explain stuff, which I really hope is a misdirect for how the ending's going to go with the Legend of Ruby Sunday and all that for the next couple of episodes, but yeah, Russell, this isn't good. This isn't good because a bad ending can really make an episode fall apart, and I think this really explains it. How, if it's just Ruby, does she have the power to make people go away to that extent? How, if it's just Ruby, does everyone that comes into contact with her, especially her own mother, not go, oh, it's nothing to fear? How, just how? And if Russell's not going to explain any of it, then this adventure falls on its arse. Yeah, I have nothing more to say. I could rant, but what's the point? So, yeah. Fair play if you really enjoyed 73 Yards upon first watch. I did too, but it has no rewatch value and falls on its arse because of Russell's laziness at the end. I really hope it's a misdirect and that Russell does explain it with all of the legends and the mystery around Ruby and all of the stuff keeping people intrigued about her companionship, about her companion story arc and what's going to happen by the end of the season and what may happen with season 2 with another character, Monday, coming in as a co-companion or coming in to replace Ruby. That's still kind of up in the air, but I think from rumours I've heard it is a co-companion, so Ruby is still going to be on for season 2 potentially. But again, there's rumours of both kinds, so at this point nobody knows which rumour is correct. Sorry about that, my cat is getting in the way. So if you heard anything on the mic, apologies. But this episode falls apart for me. What do you guys think? So let's get into episode 5, Dot and Bobble, and I have some interesting thoughts on this episode, because I said before with episode 4, 73 Yards, that a bad ending can really sour me on a good episode, and the reverse is true, giving me some interesting thoughts about Dot and Bobble in this episode. Upon rewatch of the episode, I'm conflicted. I didn't think there was anything good on display here because of the first watch that I did, basically, because the messaging seemed to be obvious and to go as far as parody and really in your face, and the whole leftist criticism of eat the rich taken to the extreme, to be honest, and all that. It seemed weird that an AI would be able to design fully physical aliens. I'm still kind of like, okay, but sci-fi premise, I guess. And the aliens within its system were just killing people because it's still technology at the end of the day, and how did it design fully physical aliens that weren't technology? If it maybe built a robot, the design and physical flesh and stuff like that would have been a bit more explained, it would have been better. But anyway, the character we follow of Lindy Pepperbean, that was just a really weird character. I get that was the point. But it seemed like the new character of Lindy Pepperbean was just made too stupid for any kind of believability, even with the social media is bad messaging being the point, and social media being the pulse of society will be the death of society, and the whole messaging with social media and being inside your bubble is bad. The political allegory of step outside your bubble and listen to both sides. Definitely what they were going for here was bad too. And the problem with making the character of Lindy Pepperbean so stupid is she wasn't engaging in the slightest. I know you weren't meant to root for her, that's very clear by the ending, but you are meant to be engaged in a plot line for the ending to feel like any kind of shock value. And upon first watch, I was just like, how the bloody hell is this character alive once trouble starts? Like, she can't even walk, she's too stupid. So how, when Ricky September needs help with the codes, does she suddenly know how to move her body independently, mistrust the dot, and managing to enter code so quickly? In his time, he had to be smart and study up on it. She's too stupid. Any kind of survivability before the main twist at the end doesn't make any sense. And it's just so slow. Oh god, it was just so infuriating upon first watch. Anyway, I said I'm conflicted about the episode, so why is that? Upon rewatch, I realised that the problem that they had with the Doctor was both an element of classism and, as implied as they could get away with, racism, because she would listen to Ruby but not the Doctor. And that was really interesting. It did make the slower bits more bearable when I realised that. Perhaps I should have realised that before. Maybe, but my brain doesn't work like a racist, so there's my defence on that one. I don't consider people's skin colour something to think about at all, so I guess that's why I'd miss messaging with it as well. But anyway, so it makes a lot more sense, and the twist at the end, where she betrays Ricky, of course, the competent white male would die. I say that being facetious and as a bit more of a joke, but it's like, okay, yeah, the betrayal was good, and just because someone is the protagonist does not mean they have to be brilliant. Does not mean they have to be brilliant or morally good to follow them. I mean, Fast and Furious guys are criminals, for example. But she just seemed too stupid to pull this off. And the Doctor even points out to them, "You will die. You are too stupid to be pioneers." Doesn't really say that, but that's what that's what they are saying as the Doctor, isn't it? That's what Ncuti is saying. Is, you will die, I can save your lives, now let me. And there's so many messages you can leave the episode with that ending, thinking about classism, tribalism, very obviously racism, and the Doctor's angry reaction to it. Initially felt too over the top. I feel like there could have been a wise old man line of dialogue there. There could have been one or two more exchanges, because the Doctor would try and convince them to let them be saved, no matter what they've done. That is the Doctor, so perhaps some more dialogue would have been good. But then again, I do also understand the thing of, well, this is something the Doctor can't face. He can't face or fight in the same way. They've never been on a racist planet. They've never been this race before. So what the fuck can they do to combat it? Some effects, obviously, there's nothing you can do. Some people you can talk to, some people you can just asperge of their stereotyping, some people you can make friends with and change for the better, but not a class of this nature, not with their culture. But yeah, the Doctor is right, they are going to die. A friend of mine pointed out that they could have made the episode far better by the Doctor saying, "No, I disagree, I will not let this stand no more," and going back in time and saying, "We will stop the AI before it is constructed to be this smart, we will prevent it from doing that, therefore, even though they're ignorant bastards, and regardless of the fact that their culture is prejudiced, they could carry on." And it's like, the Doctor is right, they will die, and they have killed themselves, basically. So as I say, upon rewatch, the ending is better, and I think the ending leaves you thinking a lot about so many different messages, so many different stings, so many different trails of thought you could come away with that could become quite interesting streams of consciousness to ponder. So I do recommend you watch this, but I feel it also loses all rewatch value. Not because the plot isn't good, because this one was a really good plot. The problem is, Mindy Pepperbean is so infuriating and so unbelievably thick, so much so that when the plot turns to her being a bit more conniving, it's so unbelievable. Also, another thing that kind of breaks the plot a little upon rewatch is her main thing was she changed his name beforehand, and that the Dot has to believe going after him was the necessary thing, the plot to work in the way that it did. But are you saying that if they legally changed their name as a star, and that's their legal working name, why would an AI not respect that? Why would it suddenly drift away from Ricky to her? I get it so the plot can happen, but their explanation doesn't work when you apply about 2 minutes thought to it. And ignoring that because the ending is that good that I would ignore it, I still think the issue with this episode is that the main character is so bone-dead stupid. To quote the Doctor when talking to the Master, that it's so unbelievable that they would have an ounce of conniving ability to plan their way out of it and then be ignorant enough to be a racist, yes. Ignorant enough to be a classist, yes. Smart enough to win a fight? God no, they couldn't even walk. And how have they learnt to walk in Trauma? Still with Ricky holding their hand and them mimicking their actions as like a 2-year-old would a parent, and staying forward. So they haven't learnt enough. There's no way in hell this person would survive up to the point of the ending twist. Therefore, I feel there is no rewatchability in this episode, but the episode is still good, and I still recommend it as a first-time watch, because I think it brings so much to an audience, and so much to people going away and thinking about, although it doesn't work upon rewatch. But just ignore that bit. As a reviewer, if I'm being fair to an episode, I felt I couldn't ignore it. But yeah, I think that I really did enjoy this episode. As I say, I'm conflicted. I will probably never rewatch it again, but this was a really good episode. So I do like some episodes of New Who. It's a shock, isn't it? And yeah, I really hope that me liking episodes continues. But yeah, that was my thoughts on episode 5. Anyway, that's the end of the video. You can go now.